Mr. Glenn, I think that's a good point. Occupation can never be peaceful. Doesn't Israel see that its very existence brings into form retaliatory movements like Hamas, like the Islamic Jihad, who are basically present to protect the rights of the Palestinian people?
Well, of course, Israel knew this from the beginning. When the founding fathers of the Zionist movement were talking about taking the land, they knew that it wasn't going to be a peaceful thing. They knew there would be fighting. And this is why they invoked, and I'm sorry, I know everybody here would like to have this be a nice, civil, friendly conversation here, but what the rabbi is saying here about this not being a religious war and this being a contradiction of Judaism is just patently wrong. I'm just going to read one passage out of the very same Torah, which the good rabbi here says forbids the creation of a Jewish state. And it reads explicitly out of the book of Deuteronomy, when the Lord your God brings you into the land you are to possess and casts out the many peoples living there, then you shall slaughter them all and utterly destroy them. Now, this is the framework upon which all of Zionism rests. And the good rabbi can sit and he can squirm and he can get very uncomfortable about this, but this is a religious war. There are no non-combatants in Gaza as far as the Zionists are concerned, because God has spoken. God said, go in there and kill all of them, slaughter them, leave nothing alive that breathes. So in that sense, Israel doesn't view anyone in Gaza, or really anyone within that land which Israel considers to be hers between the Nile and the Euphrates rivers, to be a non-combatant. They're all combatants because God told the Hebrews, the Israelites, the Jews, whatever you want to call them, whatever terminology we want to use here, God in their religion told them to go in and kill everyone. And that is why we see these things taking place in Gaza, why we see them taking place in Syria, in Iraq, and all of this. It is an implementation of the Torah, and not just in this passage, but in dozens of other passages. Go in and kill everything that breathes.
Okay, this is becoming a theological discussion. Rabbi, I will give you a chance to respond, but let's not forget, even the Hamas leaders have said that they're not against Judaism, it's Zionism that they stand against.
Exactly, and may I say, I mean, with due respect, if it's total lack of knowledge, exactly the trap of Zionism, what this fellow is saying, because again, you look at the traditional Torah opposition to Zionism, you'll see the hundreds of thousands, the more the religious the community, the more they stand up in opposition. The chief rabbi of Palestine, as I mentioned, pleaded with the United Nations, we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state. The facts are on the ground. The more the religious, the more anti-Zionist. And the joke is that Theodor Herzl, Begin, Jabotinsky, and Netanyahu, these guys are non-religious who detested the religion and said Jews with beards and payas should not have a right to vote. And the Jewish people who are following the religion says clearly, yes, we once had a land, and it wasn't, but they were not. Since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago, we are expressly to have 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty. We have to be loyal citizens in every country we're residing, and doubly we have to pay with gratitude the good that is done to us. So we never had a state for 2,000 years. That is Jewish teaching, and any Jewish child and any religious Jewish school will show you that we are opposed to Zionism. So Zionism uses that ignorance that this fellow in Idaho is talking about to show, pointing to a Bible that had a law that is from thousands of years ago that does not pertain to today, and they abuse it and they use it for their anti-godly state, their material state. But it's totally a contradiction to the Jewish teaching. It's on the ground. Come to New York, go to Mea Shearim in Jerusalem, go to London. The more the religious community, the more anti-Zionist. If it would be in the Torah, then we would support it. But that is unfortunately the great tragedy and nakba of Zionism, that they take verses of the Torah and they abuse it. And the Torah, it happened to offer that any Jew, any human being who believed in God could stay and live in the Holy Land. But if they served idol worship, they either had to leave or they were killed at the time of the temple. And even that,
I'm going to have to stop you there, Rabbi Weiss. That's Rabbi Yisrael David Weiss, the Associate Director of Neturei Karta International, joining us from Seattle, joining us via Skype from Idaho, is Mark Glenn. He's an author and journalist. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your input here in the discussion. Hopefully we can continue this discussion some other day on Press TV itself. Also joining us from Gaza was our correspondent Ashraf Shannon with a minute-by-minute update from the Gaza Strip and the Israeli war on the besieged Palestinian enclave. We'll take a short break here on Press.